I just came on to say hello. You know what? I have not been able to come on and introduce myself and talk to everyone because I got hacked twice. My computers went down. My couldn't get my cameras working. So finally, I got myself a new laptop, and now I'm at the stage where I can finally talk to people again. So yeah, you'll see a little bit of me here and there.
So
Gerald,
what's your?
It's always good to hear from you.
Yeah. So for people that don't know you and your interests, what would you say? Give a little background of your interests in technology, your science, physics, all that stuff, right?
Okay, well, let's see. Background. I'm a tinkerer, I guess you could say, right? I don't have much of an education when it comes to my background, other than I've been playing with this stuff for 12 years. Playing's quite not the right word. I've been electrocuting myself for about 12 years. And
yeah, that's what's up, buddy.
Yeah, and what else have I done in my past?
Well, yeah. So, what about? So, when you say playing with this stuff, like, what do you mean? What kind of stuff?
He's our coil guy.
Electromagnetics, electrostatics, magnetic vortexes. I play with a lot of induction coils. I've made, close as the count goes, I'm close to 220 separate coils after going over all my notes. They did not all work. Don't kid yourself.
That is a bonkers
I've got a little bit of
coils.
experience when it comes to this stuff.
I mean, how many hundreds of pounds of copper have you gone through to wind these things, man? Hundreds of pounds of copper.
That's nuts. Yeah.
So, are you writing your own book on the geometry
schools of copper and zinc? Sorry?
I'm sorry. Are you writing your own book on the geometry of coils, or do you have some awesome references?
I am actually writing a book right now. It has to do with the coils. There's a whole section in it and what it does and what they're going to do. But as far as references goes, I could just tell you the references that I learned from was John Bendini, Russ Grease, Mike Powers. Let's see, who else was an influence in there? Steinmetz was an influence in there. Most of the greats, honestly. I stand on the shoulders of a million men. I'm just another guy in his garage working on stuff that managed to get somewhere, I guess. Or maybe somewhere, we'll just say.
Pretty much every single great product of the 21st century started in some guy's garage just trying to mess around with something you thought could work.
So where are you trying to go with it? What do you want to do with it? You believe in anti-gravity, or are you trying to go free energy?
Nikola Tesla was also one of my great inspirations, and free energy is how this all started out. That's what I was searching for originally, was free energy with these coils. And I got into all kinds of different experiments. I've probably built every free energy device on YouTube that there is and destroyed almost every one of them because none of them worked. But when you got into coils and and I've also gotten into alternators, which is a whole other story. That's a neat little system in the way it came together. Like, everyone here talks about dreams and how they can influence you. Well, I built a whole generator influenced by dreams entirely, and it works. And it's an alternator that runs off an electrical treadmill motor. It has 3 alternators that run off of it. One alternator charges the battery bank that runs the whole system, and the other 2 alternators charge 2 large battery banks that are in the next 30 days, I'd say less than that, maybe 2 weeks, will be operational and running my house. So I'm at that stage with that. When it comes to anti-gravity, that was more of a, what's the term I'm looking for? Not an accident, because it that would be wrong to say. It was more like an enlightened find.
Like divine timing or something?
Sorry?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound religious, but divine timing. happened. It happened.
or just a natural consequence of you
Yeah.
invent one, the other comes with it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because I would call it the manifestation of divine abundance.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So, and when it comes to the coils, well, again, dreams played a big part in it.
Do you have a schematic for that you could share?
You know what? That's like 1 sec. Let me take some water here.
Sorry.
Do I have a schematic? Yes and no. I have a system.
I know asking for a schematic of like,
that's like
everything is like a really tall order, but still,
Like maybe you guys have a talk kind of thing.
Okay, so it's like this. That's what Bernie referred to earlier as the secret sauce, right? Well, everybody knows that when you're making a sauce and you're working in a kitchen, you don't just throw a can of tomato paste or tomato soup into a pot and call it a day, right? You got to put in the base. You got to build up the sauce. Then you got to simmer it, render it, and then it sits before you and it's complete. So basically, if you want the secret sauce, it's going to take some groundwork for me to lay before you guys can understand exactly how this is going to work. I could just give you numbers.
I'm hungry, but I want that tasty mouthful, so I have some patience.
And let's face the major difficulty here. This is a matter of linguistics. As usual, human language is the tragedy of communication. I mean, that's the truth, because we all have different ways to describe things, and trying to describe something that's particularly complex and putting it in the right set of words that can universally be understood is quite an undertaking, especially when it's kind of existed in your head as a series of images. And, think about trying to take the way that Tesla looked at things and describe that in a simple sentence to somebody. So that's the difficulty we're up against, but we'll get there, and he can definitely, I believe in you, Gerald, to get him started, you can bring it together.
Tesla was a genius.
But, is it divine knowledge that he thinks maybe, he needs to be discerning about?
Well, it's got to be accurate, right? Because to be useful, it's got to be actionable, and that means it's kind of got to make sense to a lot of people, and that's a very choice set of words.
So where do I start? Where would you guys like me to start? Would you like me to start how the coils came about, or would you like my piece of presentation I was going to put to APEC?
That would be dope.
It's kind of that'd be fire, actually.
Okay, so
that too.
I'm not going to give you the full presentation because there are schematics and certain emails that I have to send to Jeremiah for him to show certain things for me. So you're just going to get a very condensed version, so to speak, right? Let's see.
Yeah, he's working on the raw peripherals here, so he's not really set up to do all the share screen or slideshow or anything like that.
No,
right now we're just going to go with it, basically.
Oh, okay. I thought I was on a screen share. Okay.
Not to mention
that's the restriction. Yeah, so I'll get those things and we'll go back over it.
So I have to give you guys all an apology before I start because last night it was up to 2:00 in the morning with sick kids, and that's why I fell asleep and I'm late. So if I'm a bit foggy, I apologize. Let's see here. You want me to start this? Well, essentially, we've all been working towards searching for or experimenting with the key that unlocks the molecular bonds to the infinite energy structure that governs our universe. So, which in turn, in my mind, as we said already, is a manifestation of the divine abundance. For tomorrow belongs to the people that prepare for it today. And I believe that's us. So, how do electrons push through a wire and at what speeds? When you flip the switch on a circuit, we dump a bunch of electrons into one end of the wire, and at the same time, the electrons in that wire, let me reverse that. We dump a bunch of electrons into one end of the wire, and at the same time, the electrons want to spread out, making the wire neutral once more. But instead, They move in a symmetrical, evenly spaced kinetic motion. Now, in order to achieve a steady state current flow in the wire, equilibrium can never be allowed to be achieved. So remember, the electrons want to spread out in the wire, making it neutral. But if we keep pumping power into one end of the wire, equilibrium can never be achieved. This means that in steady state, electrons are slightly more dense at the negative end and slightly less dense at the positive end. So because every electron is a charged particle and every single electron emanates from it an electric field, all other electrons are acted upon by this field. As each electron moves forward, one's inertia adds upon the next inertial movement in a wave-like motion. So the speed of electricity has less to do with the wire and more to do with the speed of communication between electrons in that wire. So in order to change the speed of electricity, we have to locally change the speed of light by filling the space with a material of energy that interacts strongly with electric or magnetic fields. Due to the fact that the speed of light will be different in that material than the speed of light in something like air or the vacuum. I lost my place here, sorry. Whether or not electricity is made of all these simultaneous waves coalescing into one wave function propagated through the speed of light is the question. Light at different frequencies travels at different speeds in different media. Either way, if it produces the same observable, it is an equally valid wave function. So to add to that would be through electromagnetic acoustic resonance, electron spin resonance is achieved, which in turn gives rise to nuclear magnetic resonance, making way for dynamic nuclear orientation. So that's kind of the beginning of the presentation I was going to put for APEC. There's more to it, but I wanted to just sort of get that out in case anybody had questions so that I can give an understanding on that. Does that make sense?
Man, was that good, man. Hey, comments in the chat, all caps. If you got questions, all caps. Make them easy to spot.
I brought notes because,
Super
again,
chat.
I fell asleep, so I apologize.
I mean, so we get questions about maybe a potential ion or field. So your idea. So how do you imagine flow of energy? Is it a vibration? Is it a flow? Is it a field? What does that all mean?
I think it's all of the above. It's vibration. It's the flow of vibration in the field itself. See, the field itself has to build up, and it has to not create a space, but fill a space in order for the system to work at its full potential. So you're creating a field around the coil itself in order to create a system for the coil to interact in between that energy and the energy that you're funneling in through the coil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what do you think about entropy in general? I mean, do you believe in entropy, or is it really like just deviation?
Actually, entropy is part of the system, but you use it as part of the system. So how do I explain this? So like back EMF, for instance, when you're pulsing, no, pulsing would be a wrong term. When you're using, say, a solenoid and it's heating up, the back EMF is what's causing it to heat up, that current, that when you're using your system itself. This system that I have created, sorry, that's wrong to say, has been shown to me and created, uses the back EMF. It actually uses 7 different instabilities to become stable itself. It uses the skin effect. It uses parasitic capacitance. I apologize. The other 5 on my list I don't have in front of me, so kind of a brain fart at that point. But it uses the instabilities that in electrical engineering we try and get rid of. We try and negate so that we can have a system that works stably. Well, I use those to make this system stable. Any other questions?
All right,
Profusely
Red Cap
grammatical
Goblin.
question.
Any odd effects during any tests you can recreate? Any bugs or corollaries, overlaps, or echoes?
Good question. It's one of the reasons why things haven't been just given out easily, because there's safety mechanisms that are being tested and put into play now. Without them, I wouldn't feel right giving this away to everyone, because if you don't have these safety mechanisms in play, you could really hurt yourself. I don't know if you can see it now because it's starting to fade, but both of my arms were damaged heavily on my skin and my wrists, as if I had put my hands in a bubble at a 45-degree angle. I got liver spots, or I guess that's what you would call them, on a mass scale on both of my wrists. They've started to fade. I didn't get sick from it or anything. Really itchy though. And only God knows how long or what sort of damage has been done over long term. So I've been working on safety mechanisms in order to negate that entirely. And I think I've gotten it down. So soon enough, we're going to have these plans out to people. In fact, going over with Jeremiah, and I'm having them pressed out this week. I'm getting templates made to be handed out to individuals for the coil system to be made like kindergarten style, real easy like. So that's going to be coming in the near future. But all the groundwork for all the safety mechanisms had to be done first, because if you're not following them, well, you're playing with fire, right?
And electrical
It really
fire
is.
is a dangerous kind of fire.
Yeah, you're playing with plasma, essentially. It's through the skin effect. The whole system itself is like, it's plasmatic when it's completely fired up. When it's running, I wouldn't touch it personally. I've had an experience actually. I wonder if I should mention that. Should I mention that, Jeremiah? That experience?
Sure, you should mention.
Yeah, you know, I would keep I'd keep the one specific one that you're working on now out of it, but there are many others that I would say definitely mention.
The side effects of doing this.
Okay, I'll give you a for instance. I was working with high voltage, and I had grabbed it. I grabbed the coil through reflex because it was going to fall off the table. And when I did so, I was locked in place. I couldn't move my body. And the sound that reverberated through every cell of my body, I'll never forget as long as I live. And it was a little bit unnerving considering I was stuck. Like I was locked in place. Couldn't move. And everything vibrated, sounded like as if I was standing on a 16-inch woofer and it was turned at 1,000 watts max. And I was just, it was crazy. So this stuff isn't stuff that you just throw a battery on and play with. It's basically my point. I've been shocked many times by it. So there's that. You know, I'm drawing a blank on some of the bad situations that have happened. So give me another question. Maybe something will kind of come to my head. I'm still foggy, waking up.
In terms of electrocuting yourself, some of the things that you're trying to do, maybe that led to that.
I'll give you a for instance. I was charging capacitors. Okay, so this coil, I shouldn't say this coil system, one of the ones that I was working on has 12 separate ferrite coils that go around the outside, and they all had capacitors on them. And at one point I was testing to see what size capacitors I could put on there and how much power they would take. And I got to the point where I was blowing them up for fun.
How long can a capacitor hold energy? Like, I've heard that people can open up their motherboards at their on their computers, like their power units, and then maybe haven't touched them in like months or something, or a year even. But that the capacitor could still have a lot of charge.
Yeah, it depends on the system itself and how that circuit's wired with the capacitor, and that will define whether or not the charge is held or actually bled off. Most systems are set up so that the capacitor bleeds off, but not all.
What would you do if you were trying to build a capacitor that was designed to hold charge for like ever, for instance?
I don't know. I have never built a capacitor itself, honestly. But if I was to build a circuit with a capacitor to hold that charge forever, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I can't answer it. I'd love to give you more, but there's an in-depth answer on that. It's not just a simple throw a diode in there and lock in the power and hope that nobody touches it while you're doing your thing. But no, I can't answer that question definitively. It's too broad of an answer for you that I'd have to give. There's a lot of background to it, right? Electronics are fun, but there is a lot of parameters in electronics that if you don't know, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I used to bridge amplifiers together when I was younger. And I had a room that had 36 speakers in it because I was trying to go for absolute perfect surround. And it was an interesting experiment, I'll tell you this. Bridging the amplifiers together, I found out a lot about electronics that I didn't know. I blew a lot of amplifiers up when I was younger. So
when you bridge them, is it mainly because too much power is running through the capacitors, or what was the problem when they were blowing?
I don't know. That's a good question. When I was younger, I didn't know a lot about theory. I didn't know a lot about how things were built properly. I was one of those garage monkeys that would try and slap it together and see if it worked. So a lot of the time I'd fry transformers, pop resistors. I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't be doing. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that question other than putting it in front of you and going, this is what I shouldn't have done, and this is how it blows. You know what I mean? I was not an electrician when I was younger whatsoever. I'm not now. I'm somebody who I intuitively look at what's going on around me and try and find the answers to it. I love puzzles. And this was a puzzle I couldn't give up. And the things that I found or came across while using these systems, well, I wouldn't say they're unique because they're written in many different scientific papers, but they're definitely out of the realm of normality by far.
So can you think of anything they're used for in general, in military or in sciences?
Yeah, I try and stay away from the military sciences. I would definitely say there's about 5 aspects that could be studied that would accelerate. I wouldn't say mankind, but definitely groups of mankind.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to elaborate on what you think the 5 things that would accelerate mankind or groups of them are, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I hope I didn't stick my foot in my mouth on that one. Some things I don't like to divulge because I wouldn't say they're dangerous, but they could be used for dangerous means. I mean, there's a free energy aspect to this. There's a alternative propulsion aspect to this. There's also a healing aspect to this. This is something that I've done. I had a volunteer in the beginning of doing many different tests. This person had gout on their foot, and they did everything they couldn't get rid of it. It was a big pain for them. And I was watching lots of material and reading lots on Raymond Reif, William Reich, and the healing devices that were out there. The Priori device. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. And so I had dug up some frequencies from Raymond Reif, and I was doing experiments on myself, so to speak, just testing to see what the system would do. And my friend was complaining about his gout, so we put it on the frequency 432 and just lightly run it over his foot. Did it for about a week every day for 5 minutes. And his gout was completely gone after that. Wow. So the mechanism behind how we heal, I believe, can be activated. I believe that it's an ability that every person has, and it can be activated or pushed. No, push might be the wrong term. More, I'm trying to think of the right word. Sort of just gently brought out, and as soon as it's activated through an outside means, kicks into full gear, and our bodies do the right thing of what it's supposed to. That's kind of what I believe that how the system works. But again, there's lots of tests that have to be done on that aspect. The other two, I think I'm going to leave out for now. That will come later. When I start sending out templates for people to make and do their own tests to confirm or deny that the system works, whatever. I'm fully open-minded to criticism by far. Then I will do a full presentation on all the aspects that this system does and doesn't do, and the safety and harm that it could do. So I will leave those two aspects out for now, Andreas. I apologize, but it's probably prudent to this conversation.
You gotta be safe. You gotta be careful. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of these ideas are on the verge of being accomplished by so many people, but there's such an expense to it. It's a license to get access to the work. So there's such a few group of people that actually are going to be able to push over into that. And it's all simultaneous with Klaus Schwab's, you'll own nothing. So
yeah. And be happy, right?
Yeah.
You'll learn nothing and be happy. Well, I don't believe in that. Sorry. When it comes to free energy, I wouldn't classify this other system talk about as free energy. I'd say it's more efficient than free. The alternator system, it could run, theoretically, it could run a full house.
But you still need some sort of like power to uptake it, for instance.
The way that it works is it uses a small 48 volt battery bank that runs the treadmill motor that spins the three alternators. One of the alternators has been rewired to 48 volts. So as the system itself is running, it's charging the 48 volt battery bank that's running the system. So the additional two alternators that are running off that system, you could call them free. I wouldn't call them free. I'd call it efficient. Because as the system's running, you're charging these two large battery banks that have nothing to do with that 48 volt battery bank. And it's not costing you anything. So I just say it's efficient. I wouldn't say it's free.
Quacks like a duck, but it's not quite alchemy. All right. Yeah.
Well, you know what? If once people build that system and confirm it or again deny it, then I can say for definite that it's free energy. I have 3 people that are building it right now. So when they get back to me and all the videos come back, that's when I'll be presenting it as free energy or not, maybe just an efficient battery charger, a glorified battery charger, if that.
That's a safer way to do it, mass manufacture and put a Kickstarter out with the PDF file or something.
Well, when it comes to that system, it's everything you can buy off the shelf. All the parts, everything. You can order off Amazon or Go to your local hardware and buy everything you need. Go to the auto wrecker, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
When it
it'd be
comes
cool
to the
retrofit
coil,
something.
sorry?
Oh, it'd just be cool to be able to retrofit something. Hack something into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to point out something about that system. With alternators and a prime mover, there's all kinds of videos on the internet claiming one alternator, one motor, somehow magic over unity system. And there are fundamental problems with that. So here's the thing that I can tell you will never read about or hear about unless you go way back and look at some of the old patents. There's something called a kinematic field. And there's also something called dynamic nuclear spin.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a rotor inside of an alternator, just consider that thing as a current carrying rotor, which has wire in it, and a stator, which has wire in it. All that copper is made of atoms, and those atoms have nuclei, and those nuclei have spin. As the magnetic field flux rotates around the rotor from its position and moves through the stator, those little nuclei get recessed and they produce a field that reaches outside of the alternator and extends to a surprisingly large distance. Now, this field is so fast because it is, again, on the subatomic nuclear level that you would struggle with all of your might to detect this field. But it's there. And if you can synchronize multiple units and basically get them to act as a coherent set of rotating mechanisms, you now get a new field that doesn't exist otherwise independently of each one of those separate units. And that new field, because it is in a superposition, does not obey all the principles of our classic thermodynamics or our conservation of momentum, because superposition fields are well known to have these kinds of violation principles. And so this is one place to potentially look for all the academics that want to say, well, how in the world could this energy be coming into the system and why might it actually be happening? Consider the superposition of all of these nuclei spin fields and spin waves traveling through the vacuum of space, or that distance between alternators, if they are aligned, so that you could potentially utilize all that momentum that's otherwise not part of the electrical circuit.
Well put. You also brought up another point. If you look on YouTube and you see all these alternator videos, they're usually a single motor and a single alternator. That will never work. You can never get more out than in that sense. That's why I say the system's more efficient. I use 3 alternators, not 1. And the system runs into itself. So it's kind of, I know I'm not giving it justice by not showing you a video or pictures of it, but it's a pretty compact system, pretty close together. And all the points that Jeremiah brought up, very valid. I believe that they, from one to the next, they complement each other, so to speak. I don't know if you can punch up video burning on it or not. If you wish to, it would be on my channel. It might be a bit of a pain in the butt, so maybe we'll leave that.
Are you driving them with direct current or pulsating DC?
Sorry, have I tried?
No, how are you driving those coils?
Oh, okay.
Is it direct current? Is it pulsating DC? Is it
It's pulsating DC through an NPN transistor from a function generator.
What's your I'm trying to think of how the phrases work of like how on versus how off it is.
Your duty cycle. So I'm 50% on,
Yes.
50% off square wave. That's what I'm using.
Okay.
Basically an on-off switch. So
well, that's
try and picture this. When you turn a light switch on, all that power that goes to your bulb goes through that line and has to fill that line before the bulb actually turns on. So all that line being full, when you flip that switch off, that power that's sitting in that line has to go back to the neutral. And it goes back to the neutral super fast, almost the speed of light itself. So when it comes to using the coils, if you're turning it on and filling all that wire and then shutting it off really fast, you're pulsing power and creating a field because of the full wire or the mass amounts of electrons that have filled that wire at that split second. So when you're shutting the switch off, normally you would come back through the same wire and be back EMF and, you know, back to the system. But the way that this system works, you fill the first coil, your primary, through back EMF, it automatically, through induction, gets rerouted to the secondary. And I use that ability in order to move the electricity really quick, which brings its efficiency and multiple other factors. That's the video I just did. That I only have 6 ferrite pickup coils around it. I call them pickup coils because they pick up excess energy from the outside. Yeah,
I
that's
watched that video.
That's a small
I watched that
cat
video a while ago.
You watched it with?
A while ago. Well, I mean, it was just posted, so couldn't have been too long ago.
I don't know.
You might have seen a
I
video
have
with-
All right, here's what we got.
the YouTube
Oh, hard to
algorithm
explain.
apparently connects me with fantastic people.
Every meter here is attached to a pickup coil that's wrapped with 120 lines of 22 gauge. I've only got 3 meters, but there's 6 pickup coils. The secondary has this little cap bank here that's run from a half. It's got a diode that goes from the secondary, like a half wave rectifier, and then it's gonna go over here to my resistance board to see what kind of resistance I'm gonna get out of it, and then back into the secondary to be filtered into the system, I suppose. We'll get all that on camera at the same time. I'm just setting the stuff up, so we'll see how this all turns out. All right, thanks.
Right. So I watched this sometime near sunrise earlier today. I had no idea who you are, or that I would be able to talk with you later today.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're one of those brilliant people I've stumbled across on the internet, and anyway, yep.
Well, I don't know about brilliant, but I'm here.
Dude, I think everybody here is absolutely brilliant.
I would say this group of people, this community is absolutely amazing. A lot of geniuses in this community.
Yeah, I'll second that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, like
These
I
are the
said
smartest
before,
people I've ever met, man.
I completely agree.
It's awesome.
I couldn't have done any of this without
My just
everyone that came
disappeared
before me.
again.
Bye-bye, Adam Signal. You have to go. Space cases on the drift and no one knows.
Yeah, is that who's in the background? Is Adam there?
That
Wait,
was Adam.
hold
For some
on.
reason, he didn't recognize your name
Right.
or your voice, but he's talked with you before, so.
Yeah, I remember actually.
Yeah, that's Adam.
I've never talked with Andreas before.
And it's a pleasure.
First
I love
for me.
I love to see the stuff that you're working on. I've seen a few of your videos, so it's pretty great that you're here. I wonder about some of the uses though of like field energy more and more because of it. It only opens up more questions for me.
Well, one of the aspects, I guess I could let out a little bit is, as far as I've found, and has been experienced and tested by others, it creates a sort of force field.
Right, that's terrifying and awesome because you could use that for so many things.
Yeah. You can't use a radio near it when it's on because you hear it in the radio.
blocks out the radio even. Wow.
Yeah. So AM, yeah, I can pick it up on AM. I can pick it up on FM if it's close. And cell phones, let's just say I don't use them when the coil's on. I've gotten.
Okay, well, I guess we gotta pop this one in here from Redcap Goblin. And oh, what a question this is! Ever displace time or have any temporal effects? And that is a very relevant question, Mr. Goblin.
Should I even discuss that issue?
Maybe just
until they cut us out. Yes.
Yeah, and even like the idea of shifted realities, or as broad you want to go, however you want to take that. I mean,
okay, I'll tell you a story.
Halloween
this
begins.
is a good one.
It's not that long. Take it with a bag of salt, of course, right? So I was doing an experiment. I had my setup going. I won't explain the full setup other than there was a 90-volt neon involved, and inside that 90-volt neon, ball lightning was created. It was purple, pink, blue, green. It was amazing. While that was occurring, I had done this experiment in my office. There was 3 other witnesses with me, and my oldest daughter and my 3 youngest kids were in the living room. I was living in a very big house at the time, so there was a lot of space between us. And the walls were roughly 2 feet thick concrete. This was an old Victorian home I was living in. So as this experiment was going on, we didn't think too much of it. It was a nice, bright, sunny day. They seemed to get even brighter. It was amazing. Coil systems running in the background. And I'm looking at the clock and watching the time. Okay, things are going by, no big deal. So I shut off.
Hold on really quickly. We got a solid $100 super chat from Redcap Goblin, tech support fund. Thank you very much, Redcap Goblin. That is huge. Thank you for the acknowledgement.
That is awesome. And for answering his question, please go on.
So as I shut the coil off and started to gather information as best as I could, my daughter came to the door of the office crying. And I couldn't understand why she was crying, and I'd asked her. She said, "Where did you guys all go?" And I looked at her confused, asking, "What do you mean? We've been here the whole time." She said, "No, you weren't. I just came here and opened the door, and none of you were here." So that kind of unnerved me a bit. And I had walked down the hallway, went into the kitchen, and realized that the clock in my office and the clock in my kitchen were off by 3 minutes. Now, I should go back a little bit. Every time I do an experiment with my coil, because of the things I've heard through many different testimonies of people that work around this sort of tech, I always coordinate my clocks between my office and another room just in case something happens that I'm not expecting. And that day, something happened we didn't expect. So my interpretation and the others that witnessed it was that time stopped in that office. My daughter came to talk to us. We weren't there, but none of us left the room. So it's not explainable in the sense where we know what happened, other than the data shows that the 2 clocks are off on time. When my daughter came to the room, we weren't there, and none of us left. And I have all that on written testimony because of the situation that occurred. So temporal displacement, yeah, I believe it occurred 100%.
Totally.
What was the coil format? I'm super curious because the thing I made a bunch of years ago, it messed with time, but all of it ended up getting evened out at the end of it. So no matter what you did in the middle of this thing, you pull the clock out, it would be the same time, but within, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds, it would tick off time randomly. So what was your coil format? What in the world did you do to create that mess?
My coil is 750 feet on either side, and it's geometrically connected to Earth in the sense where it's
750 feet. What on either side?
That's called a ground loop.
That's a star fort, bro. That's a Tartarian.
Oh
star
yeah,
fort.
I could.
That's the exact size.
Actually, it's funny that you bring up star forts because star forts are directly connected to this tech.
Oh,
Directly.
You,
See, this tech, I believe.
you know the people that are hosting this channel, and if you've watched it a while, the Star Fort thing, my goodness, like you can't stop them from this sort of ideas. Nor
there's been
can
a lot
you
of great
stop
stuff
me.
on liquid mercury and star forts and the rotating forts. I've been to a number of forts myself. I went with Stellium 7 to the Spanish fort off the coast of Javia. I've been to the Peruvian fort. I've been to a number in South America. And, you know, I've talked to Beagle, who does the starfort.com and has gone and indexed all of the star forts as well as the Crusader forts and any of the military bases built on top of former star forts. So I mean, there's a lot to be said about the idea that they're used for electromagnetic and the towers next to them. I mean, the lighthouses is a whole other conundrum, but it seems like they're associated for this as well.
I believe those lighthouses are obelisks. They're energy transfer systems. It's kind of the way that star forts worked. I know of another star fort that most people don't bring up. It's not hidden per se. It's in the front of everybody, but it's not talked about. It's in the middle of the north. It's way up there. So star forts were everywhere. Like this thing's close to Antarctica, for Pete's sakes. So, I mean,
yeah, it's crazy. Are you in Canada or where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in Canada.
Yeah, Canada's got a bunch of star forts that they just started to put into scientific journals. If you look for Bastion Fort's LiDAR scan, and you'll start to see Fort Anne's and Fort McLaughlin, and there's like a few other examples of Canadian star forts, which are all really essential military strategic points that have amazing wiki pages that are very brief about like the main battle that they're forgotten about when like Louisiana was like a major empire and extended into Canada, and of course, you know, Beaver Wars and everything across and in between.
Well, there's a star fort. Most star forts would have blood dripped into them through, at least we would assume, through battles and war of previous times, right?
At very least, right? Or mixed into the
biological warfare. I think wiped out most of them in the United States.
You don't like the Attack on Titan Giants one? I like the Attack on Titan's Giant one. But the thing about bricks having crystalline iron from blood mixed in so that then they solidify, you get like a kind of special petrification process. And quartzing that happens. Quartzing, you know, because it helps. The blood helps with the quartzing. That's what it said on the slogan for the brick companies.
I believe that blood is the secret ingredient to Roman concrete. I could be wrong, but I believe it is.
It's
just
reasonable.
Because the way it congeals and the way it moves.
They loved using, you know, so I have a Croatian family that do amazing concrete and they swear by it. And one of the things is fish, you know, the fish, because it has a lot of the,
Yep. It binds it almost in a way that we don't normally see. That's what I believe, there's a
modern civilization denies all kinds of other alternate anything, whether it's physics or simple things like geopolymer concrete or anything. The real thing that gives it away that I was completely enamored with was my friends I made with archaeologists, and they show these pictures of what appear to be stone beads, and they have the marks on the inside of them of being like literally painted and cast onto straw. And apparently that wasn't enough for the other archaeologists to believe. They were really sad for these people that, you know, paint or had to drill all these holes through these little beads. And it was absolutely hilarious when they figured out that no, they weren't drilled in, they were painted on and then the straw was broken out from the middle, and all the rest of that. Anyway, I was a web forum person-y thing that ran their website for a long time. I've got the MySQL file for the entire discussion for all of that stuff, and it just absolutely breaks my heart that there's like, you can go out on archive.org and get a bit of this, but most of the stuff was cleanly lost because it was all contested and nobody believed in this stuff. And anyway, great archaeologists with fantastic reviews and all the rest of that. And they were actually worried that people would kill them. And that's why I still archive that the Pleistocene Coalition website to this day. Although I think they all forgot about me, pretty sure.
I've seen a bunch of geopolymer, smart polymer companies that make roads for militaries or for countries in South America or something, just to do like a runway or something. And, you know, the thing is, all the stuff exists. You can get it. It's actually a lot cheaper if you just pay up front instead of over the next 20 years for the thing. Right. But not everyone wants to... What am I missing?
But what I find hilarious about the company that makes these geopolymer roads and runways, these were my friends, that their only goal was to prove to the geologists that this stuff was possible. So they opened these companies worldwide to go do this stuff. And even after being a productive company, pulling in actual money to do this stuff, the rest of reality told them, the rest of the archaeological community told them, yeah, you've built a runway in Australia. You didn't do that. They literally took them and told them, you didn't do this sort of thing. So all those roads that were built with geopolymer, all the runways, all of that, according to archaeology, never happened. They deny this stuff. They've been doing this, like 20 years now? With commercial companies building this stuff. And this is when I knew these people. And this is when they were making money off of it. And they only did it. It just absolutely drives me nuts that people say this isn't possible, because these were my friends 20 years ago. And they're still doing this. They're still pulling in.
I think it's going to be really. It's practical for the reset, because, you know, if you're going to bring mastodon GMOs in and Chicanosaurus or whatever, and you want biodegradable suburbia that burns down 3 times as quick, and in general biodegradable wireless, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get everything down to a point that, you know, suburbia is not designed to last, and then mushrooms can eat all the oils in the roads. Paul Stamets shows us how. So it's going to be really easy to replace the whole thing a lot quicker, because it's just so temperamental. You know?
Yeah, right. Make it out of wood and particle board so it can just be gone in a flash fire. And
mushrooms love to eat the sucrose inside of oil plastics. So all the oil paints, all the oil in your sofa. Yeah, it's going to be great.
What?
We apologize. Adam every once in a while goes very Matrixy.
Was
he gets sucked into the Matrix.
That question at the...
Yeah, somewhere around there. I think we lost Adam again.
Looks like we did. We're coming up close to the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, is there anything you want to make sure we cover before we hard out at the 3 hour? Is there anything you guys want to make sure we get covered? Anything else you want to make sure we show?
Yeah, sure. Let me pull this thing out.
Yeah, there you go. See?
All right. Just because
was there something else? I missed that last part.
Jeremiah's supposed to pull up his camera and show stuff. He's very man behind the curtain these days, you know.
Yes, he is.
Meanwhile, Bernie's got some Ormus that he can swing around. I mean, what we really need to do is get back in touch with the Biocurious
lab. I can't
wait
to experiment with this stuff in geopolymers.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm looking forward to that myself. I believe that geopolymers are unique in the sense that if we can find the right mixture and resonate that, I believe
connection is not working.
You're bang on to the very big key breakthrough right there, Gerald. the resonating of it on the monoatomic scales.
This is
Resonating.
a solid.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that's very solid. It's a very solid line of thought to get into.
Resonation is a big factor in a lot of the work that I do. Resonating is it's huge. But go ahead, Jeremiah. I don't mean to.
Yeah, I figured, I don't know if Dan's still hanging around in the chat, but this is the newest iteration of Dan's Gravinductor. Made quite a few changes to it. There are a lot of wires. So, yeah, a lot of wires. 32 in total. But
Wow. It's a piece of
inside,
art
the
right
changes
there.
in this version are we've got the stripped wire on the inside. So we have an ion emission source, and that wire will have an extra torque placed on it from the electric field of the decaying magnetic moment inside of the rest of the copper. So here's the key with this thing. Every single one of these coils is balanced to either be full wave, half wave, or quarter wave, and they are all specifically cut to an exact copper length and copper mass so that they can resonate with each other coherently in a single wave function. So this coil kind of snaps down on top. You end up with a ball with a whole bunch of wires. And right now I'm leaving them at their full length, but ultimately I will terminate them in the inside of the globe. The only trouble with that is I have to slice off exactly a scalar resonance amount of each of those wires. So if I say on my hemispheres, which have twice the wires, this is again Dan Koster's design, this hemisphere has exactly twice the copper on it of this pancake coil that we're looking at here. And this pancake coil has exactly twice the copper on it of this column coil that we're looking at. The column coil is spaced to a diameter and a height using exactly half the length of copper that the pancake coil is wound with, so that it just doesn't quite touch the inside bare wire. Because here's the thing, this bare wire hemisphere, both the top and bottom half, these are AC coils. So they're carrying line voltage, 120 volts AC in the US. So the inside coils, they're carrying DC voltage, ran off an isolated power source, a battery pack with a variable resistor or with a small buck mode power supply. And so they're just setting up a basic field. Now inside we have two pancake coils. Let me see if I can coax these out of here. There we go. So we've got two pancake coils. You're seeing 4 layers. But anyways, these pancake coils are configured so that they're basically faced back to back, and these two halves, both this side with its pancake, this side with its pancake, are identical to each other and just simply placed back to back. They're also wired identically. So if you were to place these all flat on the table and wire every single connection, they would basically all end up parallel and with the exact same connection points. And by placing them like this, we end up with two north poles compressed directly between these two coils, which have nowhere to go, and two south poles on the outside, creating a pseudo monopole. The column coils here do the same thing, but here's the key with this system. Well, one more anyways. The inside of the hemisphere is the opposite wind direction of the pancake that faces it. And the column coil's outside facing winding is the opposite direction of the surface of the pancake that it's mounted on. So what you end up with here is a whole bunch of fields where you got a north on a north and a south on a south and a north on a north and a south on a south, all the way up the stack. So you have a whole bunch of fields that have nowhere to go, canceling wave functions. And when you cancel a whole lot of electromagnetic energy in a very small volume of space, and it has nowhere to go, it's got to go somewhere. You see the power going into the system, you see the meters going up, and you see energy being lost here, not as heat, but just seems to be disappearing. So where does it go? Well, there is an answer to that, and we call it the temporal field. Now, the temporal field doesn't exactly exist in our modern physics. We don't really talk about such a concept because we consider that the energy levels required to produce any kind of displacement in time whatsoever are tremendous and unobtainable. But this effect is possible because we can actually access, through the tuning of oscillating fields with exact amounts of copper mass between these sets of coils, a dynamic nuclear spin, which down on the subatomic scale happens to have the energy density required to produce these kinds of phenomena. And so here we actually do have a way to access something that can affect the stress energy tensor and begin to modify the variable refractive index of space-time using fairly simple off-the-shelf things like speaker wire, hot glue, super glue, and a whole lot of wires.
That thing's
So-
gorgeous.
It may seem complicated, but really what we're looking at here is canceling out a whole bunch of fields until we end up with enough stress energy in a local volume of space where we can begin to start and really screw with the way that each of those spin nuclei or their magnetic moments can couple with all the external gravitational fields. And since the proton is about 1,800 times or more heavier than the electron, that's where most of your energy, that's where most of your inertia in any given material and most of your mass is going to come from. So if we can make those things basically spin in such a way that they can't couple to the gravitational field, and if the gravitational field is indeed magnetic, which there's plenty of evidence that it is magnetically based, or should I say torsion based, we can now have a way to disconnect from that gravitational field and basically make that thing act buoyant.
Any advice for Bikini Truther? I want to buy some copper, but I don't know a good millimeter width to buy.
We're still trying to figure that out ourselves.
How about
Yeah,
like how
depends on what
Scanlan
system
did
you
you?
want to build?
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Say it again.
Oh, it depends on what system you want to build. Like if you're building the coils, the geometric coils that I work on, or the gravifier, that's a different millimeter altogether. The gauge that I use generally is 22. I'm not sure what gauge that is, Jeremiah. I don't know if you have an idea.
Well, they label it. I mean, they're calling it, what is it, 16 gauge. But
This is what I'm working on next.
Dang.
oh man, yes. Oh, I know what that can do.
And I wanna submerge it in geopolymer.
Oh yeah.
That would be
Because
really something.
I have an idea of what this might do.
Well, we got to get you on with what's his name, Nick Cook.
Oh, sorry,
I
go ahead.
like.
We got to get you on with Nick Cook geopolymer discussion.
I like the idea of.
Paul Cook for the
Paul Cook.
I'm
geopolymer.
sorry. Yeah.
I
See, I get my
also
names
do
mixed up
have Nick Cook coming on for his UAP studies and his free energy books that he's written. So,
But the
yes,
Royal Rife and
Paul
Wilhelm
Cook
Reich.
is geopolymer, and we will have to get him together with Gerald and be doing some geopolymer experiments.
But the Royal Rife and Wilhelm Reich connection here, the Oregon geopolymer with the field, and I'm curious about how many sets of polarity you're using, because you said there's multiple, and so it reminds me of Edward Scallon's Coral Castle, Sweet Jenny, what's her name? Sweet Jenny, is that right?
I think
Sweet
it was
16.
Sweet Jenny. Yeah.
Yeah,
16 generator, because of course, right, the generator, the Sweet 16, the virgin magnets, there's 16 virgin
Yep.
magnet, or whatever the deal is. Is it magnets or 8 magnets with sets of polarity? So it's the question. So I wonder, are you trying to use anything like that, or is that, have you thought about that at all?
You know what? What he used is a basic principle that can be applied to many different systems. He was using basically north, south, north, south, north, south in a circular configuration. Well, this coil does that similar in solid state. That's why there's pickup coils around the outside, and that's why there's 12. There's 12 nodes and 12 antinodes that are created on the outside of the coil system. Now, the polarity factor is always changing when it comes to those nodes on the outside of the coil itself. But the polarity that I use for my secondary and my primary and my secondary, those are also, well, positive, negative polarity. I mean, I'm getting my back EMF on my secondary. So, yeah, I guess I am using a system very similar
Interesting, right?
to Ed Lead Scallon. I wanted to
amazing.
add a little bit to time temporal fields that Jeremiah was talking about. I believe that they can be created. In fact, I believe it's one of the missing parts to all the equations that we're missing when it comes to anti-gravity. I think time is a very specific factor. I think it's related to gravity. So, that being said, anyone else want to add anything to what we're discussing? Or do you have any more questions, Andreas?
No, I mean I love where this is going. I definitely think we need to meet back again and do another talk and look at some more of these experiments and also where this next project goes. I'm pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool what you got going on there.
For me, there's 3 aspects that I'm trying to develop. One of them being free energy while anyone that's near the system itself is healing. So I've taken the core out of a gas-powered 7,000 watt generator, and I'm wrapping it with a coil in a very specific way to obtain energy out of the core from that gas-powered generator, and at the same time project a healing frequency out while it's running. So that's one of the projects that I'm trying to achieve.
Bernie, can you pull up his website again so everyone make sure that after this is done or right now, you might as well, in the middle of life, get yourself subscribed to Gerald's channel. Make sure that you get the button that's the bell and you click on that, because if you don't, sometimes they don't get you all the subscriptions. So you want to make sure you see all the new content coming out, especially what's about to come. Yeah,
so this is Gerald's channel right here, and the crazy part is he's so censored. You go to his home, look, oh, this channel doesn't have any content, but wait, videos, oh, there are. Imagine that.
Do you have any playlists? Maybe make some playlists. If you go into your settings, there should be a way that you can put your videos in the front, unless they're just really messing with you, but they could be.
I definitely will make playlists. I had a previous channel that got taken out. I was censored before censoring was even a thing. Back in 2009, 2008 is when YouTube started to explode. I had a channel called The Wisdom Walker, and I actually did a tutorial on how to build coils on it. So the channel was taken down, it disappeared. I couldn't get my hands on it at all. Charlie C managed to find it, but there's only I think 1 video on there, maybe 2. The series that I created,
it's like 3 or 5 videos or something, but 2 of the videos are like repeats of the first. So I think there's like 3 videos in total, and all the coil winding videos and all the instructionals and tutorials are gone.
Yeah, you gotta get stuff on Rumble and Odyssey. I say Rumble's good because people go there. Odyssey's great because the stuff will never be gone. It's so safe to put it there. So get yourself back.
Well, I mean, at this time, Rumble and Odyssey didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
This was long. This is right at the beginning of YouTube exploding in 2009.
Oof.
So there's 7 videos that are missing. I don't know where they went to, but they're
maybe type in your own name into Google and start doing some timeline searches for reaction videos, because if it's that far back, there might have been someone who saw it and reacted. You never know. It could be saved just by someone else out there. Guys, also in the description, you've got the link to this channel, and it's in the comment. The most recent comment by Bernie and me is the link to the channel, so you should be able to get there. Make sure you subscribe.
Thank you, Andreas.
And lastly, I'm typing in, please subscribe to my brand new Rumble channel that I just created, and the link is now in the description.
Sweet. I got one too. Do a /Exertus for me, would you, bro? Add that in there.
Okay.
Because I got a Rumble channel and an Odyssey channel too. And, we try to get all the content that we have here on every platform. And what we're working on is, we're having a dual stream where there's a secondary show. Now, obviously, you would go to that show for other reasons. You have to be very careful. YouTube doesn't like it to say why you would do that. It is I think you could say it's a fact that there are differences about the platforms, and some of the differences are that you can say certain things on some platforms you can't say on other platforms. But that's not necessarily why we would go to the secondary platform sometimes.
I might just open up channels on those platforms. Might be a good idea.
100% you should.
Yeah.
By the way, love the hat, Bernie.
Thank you.
I'll see in the tech part of my Discord. So guys on tartarinova.com, and I'll talk to TechSpread to make sure that your videos also go there. We have a thing that just pushes the videos from the important projects people are working on. So that way you guys can also find the videos in the tech part of the Discord. So yeah, thank you very much.
That's
thank you very
awesome.
much, Bernie.
Yeah, and Andreas, in the future, we'll have to get on a show and talk about sound-powered Tartarian airships.
Right. See, that's the plan. See, what I want to do is every week we're going to do these swap casts, and we're going to go into all of these subjects. Gerald, definitely, we're going to want to have you back anytime that you're able to do that. And
For sure.
the idea will be, I'm calling it kind of real science for now, but I think maybe it'll change. Bernie's got the burn eye thing. It can be called as many things as it needs to be called. But yeah, I want to get Jeremiah. I want to get you showing experiments. I want to have a show and tell from everybody all the time. And nothing has to work. That's fine. It's mostly about just showing people stuff. I think that's really cool. And also why it's interesting and what we're trying to do.
Well, we try. I mean, the reactor as it stands, it blows. But
That's science,
it's
though, right?
interesting,
It's every day is a new test. Sometimes they work out better than others, but we're
Yep.
making it happen.
Yeah.
We're bringing it forward.
Jeremiah is
That's
a
what it's all
terrible
about.
salesman. See, because I could have sold that thing as like $1,000 lava lamp, but he's like, it doesn't do what it's. Come on.
All right,
come
so
on.
we'll leave the sales episodes for when Jeremiah isn't here, so we can talk the shit.
No.
out of it.
That's the irony. I need
Well,
to sell his thing.
there's only one thing. You've got to get them to sign this waiver, because that thing may just very well completely combust itself at any given moment.
Hey, word up, Paul Cook. Easy Tigers. Look at
Paul.
that. We were talking about Paul and how we have to do an episode with Paul making geopolymers with the monoatomics, and Gerald up here wants to put his coils in polymers. So,
Do you own
Paul,
Geo?
maybe
Paul,
if you show up for an episode.
Paul, do you own Geopolymers?
Maybe he wants to jump on at the very end here, Bernie. And I would say just drop the link for the stream afterwards, because I would say kill the other cams, leave some room for people to jump in, and then we can always do an after party and just answer maybe a few questions off the live.
Absolutely. Link,
Love you guys.
StreamYard link is up
Love the
now,
play on
so,
words there,
people can
Andreas.
feel free to drop in for the after party. On that note, we are at 3 hours, so we will catch everyone on the next one. And if you want to join in, ask questions now that the stream is ending, feel free. Click the link.
Thank you for
Love
the super
y'all.
chats.
Happy Halloween.
Real science.